Hello again, and welcome to Vent once again. I'm Chris White.
And I'm Vivienne Ward.
Tonight, the gay media. Our community is often accused of navel-gazing, so we thought what better topic to cover on a gay and lesbian chat show than the gay media.
Tonight we'll be looking at who decides what goes into the gay media.
What are its aims and goals?
The cooperation between the different gay media organisations.
And what drives the people that put it all together?
Tonight I'd like to introduce you to our esteemed panel. We have Jan Campbell from Lesbiana, John Jennings from Joy Radio, and David Johnston-Bell from our own Vent TV.
Now, lead stories and front page images can be very important. First question I'd like to throw to you, Jen. What made you decide to put Xena on the front cover of Lesbiana this week?
Well, there's a new Xena book out, the official guide to the Xenaverse. So we decided the girls would like to know about it. So we put her on the front cover for May. April. Oh, yes, it's April.
It's April.
It's April, yes. And because a lot of women are interested in Xena and her exploits, and sounded like a bit of fun, so there you go, fell in our laps.
Yep. David, with Channel 31 you don't get a lot of choice on what they present, but with Vent TV, what motivates you to put things on?
With Vent TV it's all volunteer driven, so volunteers make up the stories, they go out and they film it, they edit it, and it goes to air. So it's very much what the volunteers actually want to do. There's very little direction on the content from the board itself. Yeah. Which is good. Yeah. It's the way it should be.
John, with radio, of course, you haven't got the advantage of pictures. Is it a similar base for Joy Melbourne? Is it a volunteer base?
Certainly is a volunteer base. We try and create pictures in people's minds. Yeah, we have a very, very large volunteer base. I think currently our presenter base is around 50 people just to get programs to air over a weekend. And then we also have, of course, a technical team and other volunteers who man the phones and general work around the radio station.
What would be the turnover time of programs? I mean, obviously they have a use-by date. Do they ever get used up?
We've actually got some programs that have been with Joy since day one. Oh, right. Others have been there for a period of time, then rested and brought back. But there is one program that's been there since day one.
And you get a lot of new people coming in with new ideas, things like that?
Oh, we certainly do, yes. Yeah, we have a great interest in the station.
Do you find the same thing with Vent TV, David?
Oh yeah, we get people all the time. They come in with some strange ideas sometimes, and they go to air. It all goes to air.
And Jan, where do you get your writers, etc., from to put the information into Lesbiana?
From the community, basically. Lesbiana is a curious mix of pseudo-journalism. No, I wouldn't even rate that, probably. Community contributions. Most of the women write because they want to, and they're testing out their writing skills, or they're really good at it and they want to contribute. And others are doing it, they've got little... they've got interests that they just want to share. And some women do it voluntarily, others get exchange ads, some are for small businesses that they run, some are paid a little bit. And I will get also for reviews or special features or stuff like that, I'll actually ask people will they do them, and they do. And also I write stuff by, that comes in through press releases or in contact with a number of organisations and keep up with what they're up to, with health issues or political stuff or all that kind of stuff. So I actually solicit that and reprint things or summarise stuff that other organisations and
how do you decide what goes to print? Like with Vent TV, it's really the work of the volunteers that decides what's going to go to air and what's not. How do you decide what you're actually going to print? Like, do you have a specific angle that you're aiming towards, besides obviously being lesbian and it's a reasonably feministish kind of magazine?
Well, basically the feminist and lesbian women focused is the overriding thing, and then what I try to do is to get a balance between fun things and entertaining columns of a regular nature. We've got
a bit of fluff and bubble.
Yeah, a bit of fluff and bubble, and then whatever seems to come through the month that's topical. And again, that will be stuff that's either presented to me by the press releases and so on, or things that I'll seek out. So it's basically what's interesting and happening for the month that is going to be out. A lot of women are committed to buying Lesbiana for the diary, so we put quite a bit of effort into getting diary dates for community activities, film festivals, dances, political things, whatever. And so we commission and get those in so that we've got them straight and women know where and when and what's on and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. John, with as far as advertising goes, how much does that influence the stories that you put to air? We
try not to allow advertising to overtake the station in any way at all. In fact, it hasn't to this point in time. And we had a meeting actually just a few days ago concerning that particular issue. And we think the most important thing is what we're there for, the gay, lesbian community. And advertising obviously is important to us in terms of revenue to allow us to keep broadcasting, but the most important issue is that we are there for our community.
And David, do you think that Bent TV is a good representation of the gay community?
I think so, because it's all. The community is made up of people, and Bent TV is made up of volunteers of that community. So therefore, it is a good representation. We've got a wide range of volunteers, ranging from 18, 19-year-olds through to more mature members of the community, both male and female. We've got a good balance between male and female, and even where that people live, north side, south side mix as well.
And I'll throw this one open to the whole board. Do you actually listen to what your community wants? Have you done anything to try and find out what it is? I think, John, you did a survey.
We've conducted a number of surveys. We've done it twice now. The last two midsummers have been the periods when the surveys have been conducted. They've been phone-in surveys, they've been surveys that people have taken the trouble to fill out at outside broadcasts, and people who've been members who've taken the trouble to actually write in and tell us what they think is good and bad about Joy. We've also put it on our website, so people have had access through the website as well.
That website's certainly been a good thing for Joy, and Bent TV's just got their website
yes,
up.
we have now one too.
Under construction. That's happening on a few pages, especially the Bent one. We're under construction.
Yes, even as we speak.
As we speak.
What sort of feedback generally, how do people get to influence what goes into the media, the gay media in our community?
I don't know how it works with the other print media, but because Lesbiana is community driven, and because basically I'm it's accessible, in that women ring up and say, I think you need to write about this, or we want on a great adventure, we want to write about it, whatever. So it's kind of like, you did it, you send it in, it'll be in it, within reasonable bounds. And I don't know with the others, I suppose I can't speak for them.
Well, from the point of view of Joy, we have a programming committee. People who are interested in presenting a program on Joy make a presentation to the programming committee. It's assessed on its merits. It's assessed as to whether or not there's already something existing on the station that is covering what the submission is perhaps about, and then we assess it and take it from there.
We tend to get some people coming in to Bent TV and saying, why aren't you doing this? Do you get a lot of that as well, especially with Lesbiana and Joy Melbourne?
I don't get a lot with Lesbiana of why aren't you doing things. Sometimes it will be, well, I can't afford it. I would like to have more money to put into design and say to go full colour and all that kind of stuff. So there's always those arguments of it's not done because bigger isn't necessarily better. And also in the content, sometimes it's not done because I don't have the resources to do it.
I know in the case of Joy, it's we try to be everything to everyone. I'm sure it's the same with Bent. It's very, very difficult to make everybody happy. No matter how hard you try, there's always going to be criticism.
And I suppose the easiest answer you can give them is to come in and do it.
Do it
Exactly,
yourself.
exactly.
I mean, if you're volunteer-based, it really is like, well, that's a lovely idea. Come in and do it. I mean, Bent, I don't know what Joy's like, but certainly Bent is stretched financially. It's really amazing because Bent TV, we're the most expensive media to create. It costs a fortune to create television, and we just seem to run on a smell of an oily rag. And somehow we sort of still exist after 5 years. So we can't actually do a lot that people want us to do because it's too much in both financial cost and also resource costs. I mean, I've heard people want us to do a soap opera, and they don't seem to realise, well, you know, it's not going to happen in my lifetime because it's just far too much effort. You're looking at, you know, what's Neighbours, somewhat Neighbours, you know, it's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week to produce half an hour a day.
And look at it then. There you go.
No, don't knock it. I've been on Neighbours.
One of the other things I think is what I would call, you know, the publication's integrity. And there are some things that I won't do that maybe advertisers or people may want, but it's no good if an independent magazine is a voice for a particular advertiser or a particular subgroup of the community. It's just not on, it's a death knell. It's not what it's about.
Do you think that the gay press generally has integrity?
Isn't it time to wrap up? Yes, look, I overall it does. I do think, I mean, my major interest, I suppose, is the print media. And I don't think there's enough representation for women, so I don't think that that's a lot of... I don't know what the charters are, but when they use the word gay and lesbian, it should be as much about lesbians as it is about gay men.
That's also been a criticism of Joy, and unfortunately the criticism there has been because women have not been willing to partake in the presentation of programs, and I think you probably have the same.
We sort of go through periods where there's a lot of women involved, and then it'll turn over to be much more men involved, and it just seems to swing.
There seems to be quite an equilibrium at Bent at the moment, though.
Yeah, it is.
It's getting that balance. It's difficult, though.
Is that a general thing that you would say happens in all the media, that it does tend to swing from one to the other, or is it ever at a balance point when there's, you know, equal representation?
I don't think there's ever a representation of women in the media. I mean, it's the same with mainstream media. I was reading The Age this morning and they have that thing of all the anniversaries and the famous people and the things that have happened 10 years ago on this date and everything. It's just way slanted to men. I don't know whether men don't realise that they're biased or they don't care or it just happens. And I'm not talking about volunteer organisations, I think that's different. But in commercial things that are supposed to be balanced, they shouldn't rest until they are. I'm not supposed to be balanced, so I don't have to be.
Yeah. We've got to go to a break now, so we'll be back shortly with you.
Welcome back to Bent Vent. Now, the aims of the gay media. What are the goals of your particular organisations? John, would you like to start that one off?
Well, we aim to be the best broadcaster in terms of informing the gay, lesbian communities in what's happening in the real world and in, of course, the very, very structured world of the gay and lesbian community.
I guess another one of your aims, John, is also to stay on air.
Well,
and
yes.
I'm not sure if your of our viewers have been aware of late. Tuning in on a Saturday does not guarantee joy at 90.7.
Unfortunately not, no. That's due to changes in the ABA ruling on broadcasting.
And of course you only have a temporary licence at this stage
correct,
too,
yes,
so
yes.
we all need to support our media organisations.
Yes, Bent and Joy needs a lot of support.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I don't think people realise. I mean, I helped set up Joy, and just the setup costs are just horrendous. I don't think people realise the costs and the effort involved.
And the ongoing cost.
And the ongoing costs too. And I think it's absolutely amazing that Melbourne actually has both a TV and a radio organisation. I think, you know, Sydney doesn't have it. Community radio in Perth.
The rest of the world doesn't. The rest of the world doesn't have it. You know, we're very, very fortunate.
Jan, what would the aims be of your particular publication, and do you feel comfortable talking about the print media in general?
Well, I probably shouldn't talk about the print media in general because I really don't know, I can't speak for them, but I think that Lesbiana exists, one of the main reasons is to assist women with networking. I think that it's really important that lesbians, women, people, are given the opportunity to try and find out and be who they are. And I think that one of my main reasons for producing Lesbiana is to offer a diversity of light and fluffies, news, politics, community groups, things to do, places to go, people to join in with, so that women, whether they're just coming out at age 60 or 16, can have an opportunity to kind of think, well, hey, lesbians are everywhere, and there's a place for me to go and feel supported. And
Jen,
I think that's my main thing, really.
Sorry, was it actually yourself that set up Lesbiana, or did you take it over from someone else?
No, it had been running, it's been going for about 6 years, and five or 6 years, and I've been doing it for about nearly 3 now, 2.5, 3. It was started by a couple of women, Pat Longmore and Cheryl Berkovich, who took it on, started doing it when a previous lesbian broadsheet had collapsed. It was run by a collective and it kind of wasn't happening anymore, and they thought we better start up a bit of a newsletter to keep people in touch, that sort of stuff. And it went along like that for a few years. Pat actually died a couple of years before I took it over, and so Cheryl was just doing it. But more of a newsletter style, and then it's just turned into a proper magazine.
John, how did Joy get off the ground?
It was basically the dream of a number of gay men and gay women that it should form a radio station.
And have you been there since its inception? Or?
I've been there shortly after its inception. I've been there for a long time. Seems like a long time anyway. I mean, I think the other thing that people forget about the media, and everyone's ready to criticise, but like a program that's being presented here this evening, okay, it may only present as a half-hour program on television, but the hundreds of hours in terms of man-hours that go into putting this program together, the hundreds of man-hours that go into producing Lesbiana.
Yeah, people hours, thank you.
And the hundreds of hours that go into producing programming each weekend on Joy Melbourne. They just forget about that, and they're critical of what they hear at the time, but not aware of what's actually put into it.
I find that women are really not very critical of Lesbiana. I get an incredible amount of feedback from women. Personally, when I'm out and about, in fact I did a bit of a rant editorial a couple of months ago of it would be nice to get some letters so that I could publish them, because I get the phone calls and the comments with women saying it's good that they can see this diversity represented.
Because it's not just a little clubby paper, is it, or magazine?
Well, that's what I'm particularly committed to, that, older lesbians and young women and people that are into the good times or the fluff, and women that are into the politics and who want to either join a bushwalking group or a chess playing group or go to acceptance or whatever, they can find all that in the magazine, and I think they appreciate it.
That's actually,
and I certainly get a lot of feedback.
That's a very good point though, isn't it? Because, I mean, all of us within the media have to cater to such diverse groups. And that's, I mean, much as people can be critical of Bent and critical of Joy, it's very, very difficult in the periods that we have on air to try and cater for every single group.
It is hard, you can't do it.
You can't please everybody all of the time.
Exactly.
And in attempting to please yourself, there must have been times when it just seemed so hard, and there's been times when it's been, I want to throw the towel in. And I'm sure that those times often come at spooky times. David, perhaps you can tell us about the spookiest moment that you've had at Bent TV.
Oh, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. They dragged me off a bloody G-spot in the frock. But no, seriously.
Did they capture that on film by any chance?
Unfortunately.
Oh, got to be waiting for that one.
Yes. News at 11.
I think it's going to make an appearance one day. No, seriously. About a year ago, I remember Bent just collapsed. When we had the volunteers just all burnt out. The Also Foundation decided to have a bit of a turn and kicked us out. We had no money, basically no future. And you think, oh shit, what do you do? You think, oh okay, what can you do? So we just sort of took a break and started rebuilding. So it was a pretty bad year, and yeah, it was spooky. And you think, yeah, okay, right. But it's worth keeping it going.
I mean, that was spooky in a bad sense. But what about, what's the funniest thing that's happened since you've been at bed?
Staying up all night, editing programs.
Like this one?
Because we're a week behind schedule and we've got to go to air. I mean, it's not one of those things you can just sort of... it's like, oh, terribly sorry, guys, could you just sort of... can we have our program on Tuesday night because we missed the deadline? It's like, no. The deadline for us is Monday mornings to get a program in. And, you sort of have to these days. So it's been a couple of odd moments when I've been up at 2 o'clock. If you've seen some of our volunteer induction meeting ones.
Yes, we have. Middle of the night.
2:30 in the morning when we're desperate. It's like, oh shit, we're a minute short. What do you do? Right, Carol, Lindsay. We're having a volunteer induction meeting.
And John, what about for you? What's been one of the funniest things where you've just wanted to keel over laughing that you've come across?
I mean, obviously when the microphone gets left open at times and people are not aware that it's open, and when you're dealing with volunteers and they're not necessarily skilled in the professional side of radio and they forget to close that microphone, I mean, there's been some very funny things go to air.
I'm sure there has. The mind boggles.
Especially. Oops, you shouldn't have said that.
And for you, Jan?
I don't know, I'm just trying to think of funny things. There's quite a lot of fun in it. I think otherwise I wouldn't do it. It is fun being a media magnate.
Oh, go rip it.
The others have a little more money than I do, but there you go. Yes, and the main kind of spooky, horrid or dreaded things is if and when the fabulous Hewlett-Packard LaserJet 5MP wouldn't work, but it never hasn't worked properly for a full-on, oh heck, it's got to go to the printer tomorrow morning. So not a lot of major disasters either once I finally got that.
Now
I thought maybe I should get them to advertise. It's a fabulous product. Anybody wants to buy a reliable printer, go to Hewlett-Packard.
Happy to endorse
really
that.
Major sponsor here.
Major sponsor.
I think we should be going for some major sponsorship deals now after this freebie little plug they've just got.
Yeah.
Now, we touched on it before with the internet. We know that Bent TV now has an internet site under construction, and we also know that Joy Radio has an internet site where you can listen to the radio via the internet.
That's correct.
I mean, certainly the internet is the wave of the future, if not the way of the present. How do you think that's going to affect our media as it is at the moment?
I think it's going to make things a lot more fast, in the sense that the news is going to arrive a lot more quickly. So from a newspaper point of view, the newspapers could almost become redundant. I certainly know from our point of view, from a production point of view, you still have to produce the content. I've looked at some of the net TV stuff that they have. Can't think of the company's name, but the live stuff they have on the internet. And it's just that bit jerky, bit slow, because it's live, and it's obviously done pretty cheaply because it looks, it's very boring to watch. So from our point of view, I mean, for us, the internet is another medium that we could broadcast, just like what Joy's doing. But certainly, for us, it's about 10 years away, I think, at least, before we even would consider actually making that a main medium to broadcast on.
And John, I mean, why take the plunge into the internet when you did?
Purely and simply because a lot of people in the country complained about not being able to listen to Joy. So we decided that we had to get it further than it currently transmitted. And we only really were concentrating on Victoria, but we've been overwhelmed by
Well,
the
I mean, I
response.
only knew that it was on a website by a girl in Canada who told me of all things. So it certainly has been getting around.
Oh, yes, yes. We've had responses from all over the world. Russia, Yugoslavia, the old Yugoslavia.
You are getting about.
Yes, we are indeed, yeah. Yes.
I think it's important that we don't, from a political or a why we exist thing, forget about people that don't have access to these things though. I mean, I think email, from my perspective, producing a print thing is fabulous, and it's cut my work time a lot, but I still have a commitment to accepting things to print that women would do on an audio tape or write out in handwriting with a biro, and I think it's important that they still have access to having their voices heard, and to being able to hear things. So I don't think print is going to die. You know, and you can't wrap things up in your website when you finish with it, can you?
Because what am I going to lie my cat there's a tray with?
That sort of thing. But so I think it's great, but we have to take it with a bit of a grain of political commitment about who can still find out about the world and speak for themselves without having to depend on that technology.
Great.
What keeps you there? What keeps you doing it? It's obviously extremely hard work at times.
Well, it's not everybody that can call themselves a media magnate. I like the
You're
title.
very keen on this.
Yeah, well, I think it's got a ring to it.
I get a great satisfaction out of particularly seeing the growth of Joy. It's just been phenomenal, and knowing that we've done it so well in a short period of time, and we've had such great achievements.
David, same for you?
Yeah, it's the satisfaction. I mean, it's really good to actually sit down and actually watch your own program that you spent. You know how long you spent doing it. So if no one else watches, you think, who cares? You know, I'm getting to watch my own program go to air.
Well, this particular branch of the Go Media is getting the wind-up signal in a big way. So that's it for this week. Thanks to all our guests.
And thank you to Chris White.
Thank you, Vivienne Ward.
And until we see you next time, stay bent and good night.
Good night.